And a very pleasant good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of JMU Sound Off. I am Jonathan McNamara, coming to you from Richmond, Virginia. We've got a great show today. We're going to recap the Duke's 63-7 Parents' Day win over Ball State. We're going to have head coach Mickey Matthews on the program to not only discuss this week's game, but also to look forward to the game against University of Louisiana Monroe. Mickey has some unique experience coaching in that venue that I think will be valuable for all of us as we go through the preview for that game. We're also going to have our Skyline Financial Player of the Week. You're going to want to hear that segment. Good look back at what was a great performance by this young individual who we're going to have on the show. And that's, as always, brought to you by our friends at Skyline Financial Partners. Then we're going to have our Montpelier Collective Athlete Spotlight. It's going to be a little unique this year. We're going to have a coaches segment. We're going to talk about the Coach of the Day experience from the Montpelier Collective, who is also a sponsor of this program. So we'll start off by thanking the collective. It was a big week out at Friday Night Flights in advance of the game on Saturday. Great crowd out there where we were able to find, as a part of our auction, a winner of the on-field suite for homecoming. So congratulations to that winner. And a lot of exciting stuff going on with the collective right now. Obviously, Champions Drive, a few bottles left of the first run of Champions Drive. So if you're somebody who wants to make sure you get one of the J bottles, you can do so at championsdr.com. And remember, all of the support from those bottles that are sold goes to student athletes on campus and the mission of the Montpelier Collective. As always, our friends from Skyline Financial Partners, Where's Woody, having one of our Where's Woody hats on today. Thank you to everyone who's been reaching out, asking where you can get the new Where's Woody gear. As always, you can find that at where'swoody.com. Also want to thank our friends from Talent Core. Your Purple Nation about to open their store in the Virginia Beach area. That will make 3 stores in Virginia, Northern Virginia, Richmond, and soon to be Virginia Beach. And as always, at yourpurplenation.com. And thanks as always to our friend Joe Shoker and Shoker Enterprises. Great to see Joe out in the tailgate lots this Saturday. But before we get to the show, we did want to start off with recognizing the situation that is happening in multiple communities across the country. A lot of the focus on what Hurricane Helene has done in terms of massive disruption and devastation in Southwest Virginia, as well as in the state of North Carolina. We've heard from some Florida-based Dukes about the experience they have had in the panhandle of Florida, and then obviously the states of both Georgia and Tennessee impacted. There are many, many charities that are engaged in supporting these communities. Transparency and full disclosure, I do work for the Red Cross as a part of my day job. I can speak very directly to the work of our Red Cross volunteers to help out in these communities, but there's many other organizations. Team Rubicon, a group that is retired veterans who use Team Rubicon as a way to continue their service, is going into these areas that have been impacted with things like chainsaws to help remove debris, which is a critical service, especially in these areas that are cut off as a result of the storm. Samaritan's Purse, the Southern Baptist Convention, many, many organizations, as well as churches and faith-based groups engaged in this effort to help these communities. It's going to be a long recovery process for some of these areas, particularly the Boone, North Carolina area, Asheville, that were devastated by these storms. So whatever the nonprofit is that are out there that you believe in and that you trust to do the best for these people, please make a contribution. This is a way that we show the people in these areas that we are thinking of them and that we have a vested interest in helping them recover. And as a part of our team here at JMU Sound Off, we will also be making a donation to some of the nonprofits that are on the ground engaged in this effort, and we'll continue to share information on all of our social channels, particularly from our friends at the App State podcast, who have committed to sending us some updates to let us know how things are going on in Boone and Asheville. And as we said on our social accounts, we may be rivals with them on the field, but so many things are so much bigger than sports, and everything that we can do as a JMU community to help as they start the recovery process, I know will be greatly appreciated. And with that, we are going to transition to our show. We're going to bring on the rest of our team, Taylor Atkins, Steve Brown, and Michael Evangelista. Guys, a big effort yesterday, about as close to a perfect game as you're going to get. We'll go around the horn. We'll start with you, Michael. Your fast thoughts after yesterday's 63-7 victory.
Yeah, 4-0 obviously is always a good thing. 63-7, clean game. 2 big things that jumped out. We finally got the intermediate passing game going. We saw Ross and Odie and obviously Thompson really get and dominate sort of that 10 to 15 yard pass game. And second piece here, I thought the defense had a lot of confidence coming off, giving up 50 points to UNC. They got lined up, they played, they were communicating. They were facing a team that had a lot of window dressing, that did a lot of screens in the past. I thought they adjusted confidently, and it was a really nice sight to see.
Awesome. Taylor, I had the chance, obviously, to watch the game with you. Your thoughts on yesterday's performance by both the offense, obviously putting 63 points up, and then what the defense did. I thought was a really outstanding performance from that unit, really bouncing back from what we saw at UNC.
Yeah, I mean, I said it yesterday. It's the third game out of our 4 that we've given up 7 points or less. I think the defense is just as much of a story as the offensive output, which has definitely been catching everyone's attention nationwide. It was my first time in Bridgeport this season, so it was good to see you guys. And just want to give a quick shout out to Brian Fitzgerald at the Wendy's in Stanton. He saw some of our Sound Off stuff and was asking about it, and he said he was definitely going to tune in today. So I promised him, Brian Fitzgerald, if you're coming down after a game, stop in the Wendy's in Stanton. Brian will take care of you.
And we are open to a Wendy's sponsorship.
We are open to if
love those saucy nugs.
Yeah.
And Steve Brown, obviously you and Alice in the stands. You had a chance also to go to the Friday Night Flights event on Friday. Great turnout, and it was great to see so many people coming up to support the collective. Your thoughts on yesterday's win?
Line of scrimmage is the key. Unbelievable work by the D line, the O line. There's so many guys to shout out, but the line of scrimmage I thought was dominating. And they were that O line was big up front. We can talk to Eric about it. But they beat the ever living hell out of them. And the defensive line just dominated them, and the offensive line just did whatever. I mean, Zoe had as much time as he wanted. This is a very humble, hungry, and relentless team. So this is the tough 3-game stretch. I mean, we're playing in 12 days, 3 games. So yesterday was the first of those, and then we've got the 2 kind of back to back. So, these guys are going to go through a little bit of a push, and then they've got a little mini bye. But that's the best I've seen them play all year. And we'll talk when we get to the roundtable. I did some stat comparisons between last year and this year for the first 4 games of both years. It's really interesting to see how it stacks up.
Awesome. All right, guys. We'll be back with you in just a minute. But Steve, kind of give a little hint at who our Skyline Financial Player of the Week is. But we're going to get to that segment. And as always, just a great opportunity here as a part of our show with our partnership with Skyline Financial to represent and acknowledge the JMU Football Player of the Week.
All right, so it's the Skyline Financial Partners Player of the Week for the second week in the row. This was a very difficult decision. We should have had Players of the Week because there were just so many great players out there in the last 2 games, and especially yesterday with the full team effort. So I do want to bring on Tim Nelson, co-founder of Skyline Financial Partners, and allow him to make the announcement of who this difficult decision was.
Yeah, that was a great 2 games. So I will say, if there was a back-to-back, like 2 games in a row Player of the Week, it would have probably been Terrence Spence. I wanted to give him a little bit of props here. Last game he had 2 picks. Today he had a pick, or last time he had a pick and a blocked punt in the game before too. But for this week, we had to go with a defensive player, and we also had to go with somebody who really set the energy. I think Mike was the one who said that, the energy was really a big thing of this weekend in general. We were at Friday Night Flights too, and it was, even though it was raining, it was still a positive atmosphere. Like, the families being there was really awesome to see. So the guy who brought the energy was definitely Eric O'Neill. We'll talk about the slide in a second, but he is able to be on the show tonight, so we wanted to bring him on. Good to see Eric, and see 2 sacks and probably one of the most memorable plays we've seen in Harrisonburg. So that was pretty cool. And you got the belt. So tell us a little bit about how the belt works and, what goes into getting it and those types of things.
Yeah. Player of the Week belt. Pretty cool, I think. I feel like hopefully I deserved it. And if I could keep it for good, I would, but unfortunately I can't.
If I had a couple more minutes, I would ask you about your sack dance, but we'll stick to. So I have a couple of questions for you. Keep it kind of lighthearted. So the first one was, you said that you saw the play in practice in the post-game interview. So you said, did you see that? Did you talk to your teammates at all about the celebration if you did something like that, or was that just in the heat of the moment type thing?
No, they had no idea. I had no idea. It kind of just happened in the moment, and they just joined. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm glad that part of the game is starting to move forward. I think after a play like that, you guys deserve to have a little fun. That was, I was doing the same. I was celebrating the stands just as heavy. So I don't blame you for doing that. And then 2, I was kind of curious, because you're one of the big, people that came in through the NIL, you were at LIU before. What was one of the big components that you would say was a reason you ended up deciding to come here, because I know that you were talking a lot about the energy of the stadium. Did you see that before you decided to come? Did you know that our home crowds were like that, or was that something that you didn't really get to see until you started to play?
So I had an idea of what it was like, and asking the players here and the coaches, they told me how crazy it is, and when they tell you it, it's like, okay, yeah, I can see how it is, but you don't really get to feel it until you're obviously there. So
right
up until that first home game, it was like, okay, and then that really just like broke it out for me, like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, it was a fun day. I know anybody. I was there. I was there with my dad and two of my good friends. It was an awesome day to be a Duke. So we're glad to have you here. And one final question, because you are a New York guy. Favorite pizza place in Harrisonburg? Do you have one yet, or have you not done enough analysis?
Sorry, I wish I had an answer for you.
You don't have it. The answer is none of them, isn't it?
I've tried a couple. I haven't gone back to the same one twice, so that tells you.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a lot of friends and family from New York too, and they all say the same thing. But hopefully you'll find one that you can at least is okay. So, but anyways, congratulations again. We're really happy for you, and it was really nice to see the defensive line really get rolling with you leading the way, and we're excited to see what you can do next week. So I'll pass it back to Taylor.
Yeah. Eric, hang on for 1 minute if you can. I think Steve and Michael might have a couple of questions for you before we let you go, but I do want to remind everyone, SkylineFinancialPartners.com, life income planning, tax management, estate planning. If all that stuff means something to you, and check them out. If it doesn't mean anything to you, check them out. Great guys over there, JMU guys, taking care of JMU people. So SkylineFinancialPartners.com. But with that, let me bring Michael and Steve back on the screen here, and I think they have a couple questions to ask you before we let you go.
Eric, congrats again on winning the award. Fantastic game. I know Tim was a bit bashful and didn't ask, but I have to ask more about the slide. Also, what's going on with the little shoulder shuffle, man? Like, you've done that a couple games in a row. Tell us a little bit about your dance moves.
Yeah, I'm hoping that's going to be my signature now. I'm hoping, I think that's definitely that. And the slide, it's kind of, it kind of just happened. But I feel like, whenever you envision a defensive touchdown, it just means so much more, especially, a defensive lineman touchdown. It just doesn't happen. Like, in my 3 years of playing, I don't think I've had a defensive line touchdown ever. So when you envision it on your own, you're thinking about the coolest stuff you could do. And the slide kind of just came naturally.
That was awesome, man. You also look natural catching the ball. So maybe, who knows, some trickeration on offense, maybe. We'll see.
Could be. Hey, former high school wide receiver. So got a little bit of hands.
Did you play wide receiver and DN in high school?
I did, indeed.
Oh, God. I was going to ask you, so this is the second year in a row we've had a defensive lineman pick six. Jalen Green had one last year.
Did he? It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. The thing I was going to ask you about is, so what have you seen, I guess, in the overall team piece, and you can answer for yourself too if you want, but what have you seen since game 1 to game 4 in terms of change? Because to me, it's night and day. And not that you guys weren't together, but it definitely clicked in the bye week. But, what have you seen? Because you're living it.
I think it's just our confidence is there now. I think we came in and we were a team because, we've been together. So we were a team. That wasn't the problem. It was just building our confidence. And I think it was the whole team's confidence. It wasn't just like, me, or it wasn't just like Zoe, or it wasn't that, we all needed to get that confidence together. And you could see, obviously, like you said, night and day from those first 2 games to now, we go out and it looks like, we're always ready to go. We're always together and we're ready to play ball. And
I got to ask you what that poster is behind you. I can't see it far enough to know. The poster you got back right behind you.
Oh, that one? Yeah, that's just Sean O'Malley. Favorite fighter.
Cool.
UFC,
very cool.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, but I couldn't see that far, so I didn't have my glasses, but that's cool.
Yeah, that's probably my second favorite sport behind football is definitely MMA.
You look good with that belt, though. I could see you in the WWE.
It's nice, right?
See,
I might have to steal it for the week.
Well,
they
Eric,
can't take it.
man,
Not taking it from you.
Thank you for spending your Sunday evening with us. Thank you for coming and taking the time. You're definitely becoming a fan favorite, as of many of the guys in the defense. We mentioned at the beginning of the show, 3 games of the 4, 7 points or less. Y'all are doing a great job. So again, thank you for taking the time to come on with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, Eric, and one more time, thanks for your teammates too. We say this to every athlete who comes on the show. We know you guys sacrifice a lot off the field to make what happens on Saturday possible, and I know you're humble, and your everyone who's come on the show as a part of this award has said there could have been multiple players that made this honor, and we're just grateful to everything you guys did yesterday, because you made for one hell of a Parents' Day weekend, and I can tell you, if you guys ever have an understanding of just how much group chats you guys spurn and the side by sides on message boards and TikTok threads and YouTube comments, it's because of the sacrifices and the things you do on Saturday. And we're just grateful we could add your voice to this conversation, because, man, it's been one fun start to the year.
Oh yeah, it's been awesome. I appreciate it so much.
Awesome, Eric. Well, we'll find some pizza for you. There's got to be the correct answer is whatever one's willing to give you an NIL deal is the best pizza in Harrisburg.
That could be.
We'll talk with you offline. But all the best, Eric. Safe travels down to ULM, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
All right. And with that, guys, I'm going to send you guys away, because it is now time for our Montpelier Collective. We're going to call it a coach spotlight tonight. We're going to have an opportunity to talk with two of the individuals who had the first ever JMU Coach for a Day experience. But this is our athlete spotlight presented by the Montpelier Collective. And with that, we're going to bring on Mr. Frank Payne and Karsten Long. If you've been following our social media accounts, you have seen these two gentlemen on our pages a number of times, because they were the lucky winners of the first ever Montpelier Collective Coach for a Day. And we are still doing everything we can in our capacity here as a partner with the collective to promote this opportunity. And the reason for that is simply this. Every single ticket that is sold as a part of this program goes directly to support the mission of the Montpelier Collective. And with the success that we are having on the field, that means that we're going to need to have additional resources in our coffers at the Montpelier Collective to continue to do all that we can to invest in our current student athletes and give our coaches the resources they need to keep these winning ways going for JMU football. But in addition to that, our basketball programs, we've talked about our women's volleyball programs, women's basketball, men's basketball, all of the sports at JMU benefit from your investment in the collective. And gentlemen, I want us to start with you, maybe Frank. You've been very outspoken and very upfront about what not only the experience meant to you, but you saw firsthand in that experience just how open and accessible this staff was. So for somebody who maybe hasn't seen the highlight video from that day, take fans into what the experience was like from really the second you showed up on campus. Matt Transu met you at the door, had you guys all swagged out. Just give fans a little insight into what the staff was like to work with. Frank, you're on mute. I have to all unmute you. There you go. There you go. All right, Frank, we'll work with you because you're still on mute. I'm going to go to you, Carson, just in case Frank can't get his mute button off. But Carson, tell us, you were on the sidelines yesterday with Matt Transu doing some help with the football team with the iPads. Give fans a little bit of insight into how your day was yesterday, but also to go into what your experience was like. You got to do the Ray Lewis dance as you came out of the tunnel, probably one of the more iconic moments from that day.
Oh man, it was unbelievable day. I mean, the crowd was amazing. Everybody showed up for their families, and just going back from spring game. I mean, going to that Ray Lewis dance move. It just the guys, the coaches, everybody's just humble and so connected as a unit in a group. It was just a great time to be with the team once again. And I just asked and hope that people put their name in for a raffle ticket to get this opportunity to be with the team, the coaches, fans, everything, and just help Jonathan McNamara and the Montpelier Collective and Cliff Wood, and just support everybody that is involved in this group, because it's a great opportunity to be out there on that field, coach for a day.
Awesome. And Frank, now that we got your sound back on, one of the more iconic moments from that day for me is you were standing next to Coach Kennedy, and you had the entire quarterbacks group around you, and they really brought you into kind of looking at the play sheet and gave you the opportunity to kind of craft your personalized experience for it. It just showed, from at least my perspective, just how much they really respected the whole idea of Coach for a Day, but just how much they really invested in making you feel part of the team.
Yeah, 100%. The coaching staff was unbelievable. Matt was great. The experience to me was way above anything I ever expected. I didn't expect a lot. I thought it may be a quick fundraiser and we'd be in and out, but no. We actually called a lot of plays. They gave me 8 to 10 plays. I called those in the first drive. So then Coach Kennedy gave me his sheet, and I was just calling random plays left and right. It was just a great experience to be part of the team, to be in the locker room, to be with the guys, the quarterbacks especially, really took it serious, as I saw the defensive guys did too. So I got my medium shirt on for Coach Chesney.
You're learning.
I had to wear my medium for him today. What an awesome group of guys and coaching staff we have now. Football, basketball, and the AD. I was with the AD yesterday in a suite and with Mallory, and she's unbelievable.
Yeah, so, we call her on this program. We call her the co-AD. So she has been promoted.
I mean, they're both awesome people, and we're going in the right direction here. And we need support from people out there to pay these players, to support the collective. It's a huge part of college football, college sports in general is NIL now. So anything we can do as part of JMU community, please consider donating, and then also try to be the coach of the day, because it's a great experience, one you will never ever forget.
Awesome. And then Carson, I'll give you the last word for you. The one thing that I've really been moved by is just how much this staff has embraced you after that experience, and how the players really rallied around how you were the coach for a day experience. You've almost become an extension of the coach of the day in more than just being coach for a day. I feel like you're almost on the staff now and a part of the team in more ways than one. Just kind of your final word on just what it's meant to get so close to the kind of the team behind the team, and just how much they've embraced you and really made you feel part of the broader effort that makes a win possible on Saturdays.
They've made me feel so much at home, and just so grateful to have the opportunity to be with the team and the coaches, and being able to give them that energy, the boost over the edge for each home game. And I just couldn't thank the staff and team enough for having me be with them on the sidelines, helping them do the iPads and stuff that I did on against Ball State.
Well, I'll say this, Carson, whoever wins the Coach for a Day experience this time has their big shoes to fill in terms of what they're going to do for their dance pregame and in the locker room. But guys, I just want to thank you again for being part of this. I think the greatest way to show that something was a success is that when people are willing to be ambassadors after the fact. And I feel like I haven't seen either of you stop smiling from that, but it also is a testament to your passion for this program. I know both of you care a lot about what happens on Saturday and care a lot about what happens to the future of this program. So if you're watching this, you're inspired, you've seen the impact that the Coach for a Day experience had on both Frank and Karsten. MontpelierCollective.com. There are still plenty of tickets available. You don't have to just buy one. And again, the end goal of this is to put additional resources into the Montpelier Collective, because the more that we have, the more we can do to support student athletes on campus at James Madison and continue to tell great stories. We've done a really deliberate effort in focusing on the community service side of the collective of late, giving you a little behind the scenes look at what these players are doing to enhance the Harrisonburg community. And that's all a part of your efforts to invest in this program. So Frank and Carson, I know we'll see you along the way. This is not the last time we'll have you on the program. But not only thanks for promoting this program, thanks for what you do to advance the brand of James Madison athletics.
Hey, love the book behind you too.
Thank you.
Yeah. They see, I've got one. Frank Payne, also the ambassador of 2 children's books. So, and the key to this, Frank, real quick plug, when you purchase one of these books, you invest back in the Montpelier Collective and JMU as well.
Absolutely. We give 100% of all proceeds to charities, and we will make a donation to the Montpelier Collective also. So please, during Christmas time, think about buying some Webster the Beagle books.
There you go. And where can you find the books, Frank?
Amazon sells everything.
There you go. Awesome. And we'll I'll get you a link and we'll put it on our social channels as well.
That'd be great.
All right, guys. Thanks again.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Go Dukes. All right. And with that, we're going to get to our main segment tonight, looking back at the recap from this week's 63-7 win. We're going to bring everybody on, as well as the man who needs no introduction for the second week in a row. Hall of Fame coach. Man, it feels good to say that. Mickey Matthews joins the program. Mick, first of all, did you play golf today, Mickey? It's a Sunday, so I feel like
I played yesterday.
How'd you shoot? How'd you shoot?
I did. I'm okay. I hold my own. These young guys I play with are young stallions. They won't let me play from the old man tees. Kind of pisses me off. But I've learned to accept it. So I
All
play
right,
with these guys that they hit it a lot further than I do. Believe me.
there you go. All right. Well, Coach, you had a chance to watch the game yesterday. We were talking a little bit out in the green room, and the one thing I thought that you said that really caught my ear, and you mentioned it to Eric, is it's not an accident that teams get better week to week. It takes good coaching. I'm just curious what you've seen in terms of the production and the progression of this program from what we saw in week one, and obviously the well talked about struggles that we had against Gardner Webb. This team's really moving in the right direction. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Well, I thought the number one thing this game, that the turning point of this game was the national anthem. I mean, we totally dominated from the time the first whistle blew. I think the thing that had, I'm sure, driven Bob crazy too was I'd been concerned with us having 12 men on the field, and pre-snap penalties hurt football, and fans do not notice that. But anytime you get someone jumping, all that stuff adds up. I mean, we tell our offensive coaches, when we jump, offensive players, when we jump 2 or 3 times during the game, that's like 2 sacks. You can't give up yardage like that during a game. And it was a very clean game. That's because of coaching. It was a much cleaner game. We had a minimum amount of penalties. I just thought, and that just doesn't happen, because when you have those kids on Sunday after the North Carolina game, and for the next 2 days, they're going to be told they should start a mini series in Hollywood. I mean, all they're going to hear on campus is how good looking they are and how wonderful they are. And by the time you get them to practice, or you've got to get a baseball bat and get their attention, that Ball State is coming in here to beat us. And that is a really tribute to the coaching staff. And I've been through that many, many a time. It's as hard as come back from a big win as it is from a big loss. When you lose on Sunday's meeting, it's quiet as is in church, and you walk in on Sunday after a big meeting and they're all, laughing and playing, and you're, a lot of times you have to give the same speech. But I thought the staff did a terrific job of cleaning up some things. I thought our defensive, I thought Ball State's defense was, they just acted, they didn't do a lot. We owned the guys. I was really surprised how poor that Ball State was on defense. I think that's because we're doing the same things week after week offensively, adding a few things from time to time, I noticed. But our guys are getting better at what we're doing offensively, and I think it's showing, this group of kids, we've been together now for 4 weeks, and they're beginning to play. They're getting used to each other on Saturday. So I was really impressed. I thought, like I said, the word to describe the game Saturday was clean. It was a very clean football game for James Madison.
Yeah, I was going to add to that a little bit too. Like, I think the confidence of the defense was one thing, but the offensive line too. We've done this rotation now where we bring in Robel, Simmons, as well as Toner. I think it's gotten smoother and smoother week over week. I think, Mick, Coach, you hit it right in the head. I don't think we had a false start. Maybe we had 1 or 2, but not as many communication errors as weeks before, which is really nice. But also, shout out to Coach Hemphill. I think when we brought him in, Coach Hemphill's defenses were known for turnovers. And I think we had a few interceptions last week. I think we had 3 interceptions. I don't think we forced a fumble this time. But I think we're also leading the nation in turnover margin. I think we heard that a little bit.
Believe me.
Yeah, unbelievable, right? So,
no doubt.
I've heard a lot of like, oh my goodness, we need to work on our tackling, or we're not getting as many sacks or tackles for loss. But I think on our side, the defense is making a lot of plays, which I'm really happy about. But Coach, I'd love to hear from you. So Ball State had a running back. He was a four-year guy from EKU, transferred up to Ball State, averaged about 6 yards a carry. Obviously, they were trying to do anything to move the ball. Did you see anything on your end on why he was able to run up the middle on a few plays there, or do you think we were just getting adjusted to the speed of the game at the time?
Good question. It's hard to really. I'm not sure what how they handle their gaps, and if it's certainly been with our defense, I'd have known immediately. But I thought they blocked us early, on a couple of drives, and backs running north and south. Probably, if I were guessing, I think their staff could have second guessed themselves because they probably went away from the run too quick. We were scoring almost at will on offense. So they probably felt like they needed to throw the ball, and maybe North Carolina had thrown the ball against us. So we think we can throw the ball against them possibly during the week. And then all of a sudden they look up and there's a turnover there, and it goes from, 22 to 7 to 28-35. It got out of hand in a hurry. And I think they got away from their game plan a little bit too quick, throwing the ball. Because I've said this many a times, you can stop teams when all they do is run the ball. And you can stop teams all they do is throw the ball. But when they have a 50-50 mix, you better take your lunch pail. It's going to be a long day. And anytime, teams get behind, they start throwing the ball over down. Well, that's, Red Rover, let the defensive line come over, because they're going to crank it up and rush the passer. And we have once again, I believe that I think we have I've watched them practice, and I've gone out to practice. We have good athletes in the defensive line. They look athletic. They look big time. And we can rush the passer when you don't have to worry about the run. And I thought they got away from it a little bit, and that really helped us.
Well, Coach, I have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
The first one that is, a popular segment that happened last week was the visor toss moment. So in a game where it's 63-7, not a ton of visor tossing moments. And I will say, even though I thought the game was called pretty well, it's hard to get mad at a bad call when you're winning that big. But I will ask you, the one visor tossing moment I had, and I want to see if you picked up on this too. I've never seen so many flags come out on a play, and then only for the refs to pick them back up and say, "We're just kidding. There was no flag on that play."
Yeah, it's a good story about I don't know. Officials pick up flags. They have reasons to do it. When I was in the CAA, had a great director of officials named Jim McConaughey, and Jim and I, it always made the officials in the league nervous, because Jim and I were really, personal friends. We really, like to hang out and have dinner together, and I really enjoyed Jim. So I was not nervous about calling to complain about some of the refs, and they knew it. But I'll never, when we were at Chattanooga, that was a very confident football team. And the pregame meal, we're sitting in there, I'm sitting with the coaches, and it is like church. I've never heard our guys be so quiet. So I looked at the coaches and said, "Look, we're too tight. I mean, we're going to beat these guys tonight, we're there." So I stood up to the team, tell them the bus is leaving in 45 minutes, go use the restroom, and we'll see you on the bus. I said, "I won't tell you guys a good joke. Y'all have been too quiet. We need to quit being so dadgum tight in here." And I told one of the best jokes I thought I'd ever told in my life. Not one person laughed in the room. Zero. Well, being Mickey Matthews, I've tried to think quick on my feet. So I said, "Wait a second, guys." And then whenever I said this, I said, "Guys, let me tell you this." I said, "I talked to Miss Matthews today at lunchtime, and I'm not going to yell at the refs tonight during the game." And the entire room busted out laughing when they walked out. They knew that I was lying, It really was funny. The whole room busted out laughing. The coach, "Shut up, coach." And but it was but I don't know I think they do a good job. It's a hard job. The thing that makes I'll say this about officiating, and I heard the Thursday night pro game, they were talking about too many flags on. What's happening in football, all the defensive backfield coaches are teaching the defensive backs to hold receivers. And then when they get called for holding 3 or 4 times in a game, they get pissed off. The offensive line coaches are all teaching their offensive linemen to hold, because the rushers are so good. And then when they get called for holding 3 or 4 times, all the TV announcers get mad at them. I think that's really got difficult to officiate for, what's a foul, what's holding, what's not, because that's the 2 fouls when I watch college football and pro football at as fast as it's being played. That's difficult to officiate, and sometimes people want it. Well, it didn't affect the play or whatever, but that's difficult for officials.
Right. Well, you made a good point last week about when you're coming off a big win like Carolina, that it's really easy to have a letdown. And you even heard some of the players and Coach Chesney talk in the post game yesterday about, being very intentional about not letting that happen and bringing up some examples of when that has happened. So, you gave some good insight into what a coaching staff is kind of thinking after a big win at UNC. Now we're kind of going into another situation that a lot of coaches face, where you're not just coming off one big win, you're coming off two big wins, and the national hype is kind of starting to pick up and get even louder. But you're going into an environment, and this is not a knock on, ULM. There's probably not going to be a lot of people there. There's probably not going to be the environment that they've played last week in Bridgeport, the week before that in Chapel Hill. So what would, if you were coaching this team, or if you were coaching any team going into a situation similar to this, how are you kind of preparing players to go into a situation where it's a 3-1 team, it's a team that can beat you, and it's a team you need to beat to maintain your status in the Sun Belt standings, but the environment is just not going to be there like it's been the last couple of weeks?
It's a very good question, and something that I've learned this the hard way as a coach. You might as well address it as a coach, because you don't want to get to the ballpark and look up there and there's, 1,000 people at the game, and it's like a spring scrimmage. There's no, you can yell across the field, you yell up at your wife, and sitting on 10th row of the bleachers and say hello. You might as well address that I've learned that as a coach, because the kids are going to feel that. You look at it, there is a letdown if you don't watch it, if you don't address it. We used to have that problem with JMU when we'd go play, many of the northern teams, because they were already playing basketball by October the 1st. And you just had to address it with our kids, that when we go up there and play, their facilities were bad. And Monroe used to be called Northeastern. I played, that's how old I am. I played there. I coached there. They struggled financially to stay up in Division I. They haven't been very successful, but they're off to a good start this year. They beat, I don't know how good Troy is this year. When you beat Troy State, you beat a good football program. So these guys right now, they've been down, and also they're 3-1. They're going to warm up Saturday night. They think they're going to beat James Madison. Believe me,
right?
We got them here. Last time I coached there, when I was at Coastal Carolina, we were, I remember looking up into the first quarter. I thought I was back in Bridgeport. It was so dark you couldn't even see the other sideline over there. The lights are terrible. But they're at the end of the game, you got to convince your players this. When the score is announced on ESPN Saturday night, it's not going to say due to poor lighting and James Madison not getting ready to play and this and that. They're just going to put the score up there. They're not going to say there was 500 people there, including dogs and cats and custodians. What's going to happen is there's going to be a winner and a loser. So we got to get our butt ready to play, because these guys think they're going to beat us. That we beat North Carolina. We had a big. Their kids will see how many people are in the stands. We're going to come in there high on the hog. So and Bob and his staff will do a great job. They know that. I've been out. I'll tell the JMU Nation, we have a really good coaching staff, and they're going to bring all that attention to those guys. Bring their attention that it's going to be a long trip down there. And we got to beat their butt. This is the first conference game. We got to play them 1 week at a time. There's no reason worried about anyone else in the conference, but you can't do anything about this weekend. The only thing you can do something about is this team down in Monroe. And believe me, they're hiding in the bushes for us down there. They think they're going to beat our butt when we get down there. So we got to get ready to play.
Mickey, I want to ask you real quick to follow up on that. That you mentioned it to Alonzo last week, and I heard you mention it to Eric in the pre-show that this is really a week for leadership. How would you lean on your kind of team leaders and your players who have a voice in the locker room to make sure that they are focused on what they do in their job on the field and not the atmosphere around it? Because it's probably easier said than done. I'm curious what tactics you deployed to try to keep your team's focus in environments like that.
Well, the guys that raised me in the business, they taught me this, that many times right now, other than, maybe the pregame talk or the Friday night talk, the players are going to tune you out this time, in a group situation. But if you get players in individual meetings, even a 2-minute meeting, a 90-second meeting where I would talk to my older players during the week, maybe sometimes this is practice was starting or somewhere else. We have got to get everybody ready. That is your job. When you're an older player on the team, it's not enough to say, I'll be ready, coach. You got to get everyone else ready. And I would challenge our seniors that have been around me. And I think that goes a long way, because you have to be in one of those locker rooms after a loss and I'm sure the locker room after the Gardner Webb game, we were glad we won, but I'm sure there are a lot of guys that weren't feeling very good about how the game went. We don't want that and have a loss tagged onto it too, because we didn't play well. We've got to get better, and we're getting better every week. I'm telling you, the guys are doing a great job of coaching them. Good football teams get better. They get better every week, and you've got to challenge your guys. And once again, when I watch the product that Bob and his guys put out on the field Saturday, it was obvious our players had been challenged to beat Ball State, and we've got to do it again. This is not basketball we play every 2 or 3 nights. This is football. We got a full week to get ready to play. That makes the great game it is, and we got to get ready to go in there and jump on these guys.
So what do you tell your assistants? Because during the week they normally play music. They've got a lot of loud stuff, and I remember the center Tanner Morris mentioned in his either it was his interview with Dave Riggert that he was really bothered that UNC wasn't loud enough, that they wanted to feed off of the booze and they wanted to feed off of that happening. So I know you'll talk to leadership on the players, but what are the assistant coaches? What role do they have in all that this week?
They have more to do it than anyone else does, and I would challenge my staff that that I can talk to them as a group, which I'm not gonna I'm not going to give them a win for the Gipper talk on Tuesday or Wednesday, because they're not listening to you. They're on Tuesday or Wednesday, they're still worried about their girlfriend, or they got a new girlfriend found out, whatever. But the coaches absolutely have everything to do with how their particular group. And I would tell them, the other guys, when I watch the film on Sunday when we get home, I would really grade the coaches on how well their players played, whether it was the receivers, the quarterbacks, whatever, my big thing I always said, a player, when he plays on Saturday, he's either taught to do something or he's allowed to do it. And that's your responsibility as the assistant coach. Don't tell me, coach, either allowing him to do it or you taught him to do it. And so I really put a lot of pressure on my coaches to make sure they were ready to get their specific group ready to play the game.
Now, Bob's got them all jumping up and down and waving towels and doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's great because I looked across the way and the Ball State guys, as you said, looked like they wish the bus was fired up at halftime.
Yeah,
so they could go home.
I was stunned. I was totally stunned by Ball State. They weren't real. They just weren't very competitive. And I don't know, Mike. They might have had some guys hurt. I don't know what. Once again, I thought the X's and O part. I thought they went as well as they ran the ball against us early. They really went away from it pretty quick.
It was worse on the field. I can tell you on the field. As soon as we ran the muddle huddle and did the lateral over them and went up 15, they were done.
Yeah.
They basically tapped out in the first quarter.
Yeah, they just didn't compete right now. That would concern me. But once again, and once you asked me, and I've heard Bob say this, and I know I've heard a couple of his players say this, that do not worry about Louisiana Monroe. Worry about James Madison. Worry about us. Watch the tape today on Sunday. What mistakes do we? The biggest room in the world is the room for improvement, and we can play a lot better than we did against Ball State. And I know Bob. I've been out there watching him coach. They have competitive practices. And that's what you're going to do this week. You're going to have competitive practices and get ready. This is not November the 10th where everybody beat up. This is September or whatever the hell it is, where we're getting ready to go. We've been pushing, but we're really going to push right now. We're going to get James Madison ready to get on an airplane and get after their tail when we get off the bus, the airplane down there.
Yeah, Coach, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? I think that the biggest challenge with this game, obviously they've got a good team. They've got Division I athletes, but you've got a long trip to Louisiana. And number two, you're playing in front of probably the only non-sellout game this year for JMU football. So it's going to be really interesting to see. I've got an excellent.
It's a good point. It's the ultimate trap game for James Madison.
100%.
It's ultimate trap game. I mean, it is. Everything is there after the last 2 or 3 weeks we've had, it's the ultimate trap game.
Yep. I've got a quick X's and O's question for you. So we've been talking about all season how we need to get Barnett going with some of these quick passing games, quick 10-yard outs, quick hitches. I thought this game we took advantage of the screen game on the outside. I think we scored once or twice off of what we call RPOs or run pass options. Curious to hear from you. We've got a lot of what you like to call satellite players. We have Ymir Knight, Cam Ross.
We have a lot of satellite guys. I thought
exactly.
I had that written down on my notes here. I said we got a lot of satellite guys on our offense.
Yeah. There you go. So put us in the quarterback position. What is Barnett seeing when he's looking down the field and he decides to throw a quick screen at Ymir on the outside or a quick bubble? Like, what for our listeners, what is the quarterback looking at to make that type of decision?
Well, just numbers. The quarterback, the offensive coordinator has, and he calls the play. And I don't know. We would RPO. We were RPOing, 10 years ago with our what RPOs mean to the fans is.
I tell people that Rodney offense is college football now. Yeah, it's all RPOs.
No doubt, we're way ahead.
Yeah.
The offensive line and the running back think it's a run that the quarterback's going to hand the ball off. I mean, that's what they don't. They don't know that it could possibly be a pass, but they block a run and. The quarterback looks at the numbers out there on the edge. If this play has been called, and if they do not line up with enough guys out there to stop the hitch screen, then he just doesn't. He kind of fakes a handoff and then throws it out there. Now that's one time you can run an RPO because it's a pass. The offensive line doesn't know the ball's been thrown. Now sometimes I noticed we were having a called hitch screen. You know what I mean? Because the linemen were pulling out there. That's entirely different than an RPO. But they're doing it. They're getting better at it. Those things, what happens to a hitch screen is the fans, if the numbers are there, it's going to be a good play. Got to block the right guy. And, you're going to run it 4 times, and you make 3 or 4 yards of try, and all of a sudden now you rip off, a big gain of a 40 or 50. That's the way those hitch screens are designed. So they're not always going to be big plays. But once again, when you recruit guys that you put out on the edge, you get the ball to them in the open field, you got to do that. And we're doing a good job of that. I like the plan. I think it's really good.
Hey, Mickey, I want to ask you the one thing that I keep coming back to that's one of the probably least talked about storylines of the season is the fact that Indiana is now undefeated. With Kirk going up there with so many JMU players. And now, let's just be candid. I think there were a lot of us who thought it would have been a very natural and acceptable thing for this program to maybe take a step back because we lost so much talent to Indiana. But to have both kind of JMU programs, JMU West in Indiana and this program now undefeated and both, Indiana is now ranked and JMU knocking on the door of being ranked really just speaks to the recruiting that has happened with this program over many, many years, back to when you were a coach, because you're seeing that the depth of JMU football was obviously there. In addition to, yes, Bob brought in some really strategic transfers that are making a difference, but the starting quarterback of this team was a kid who was already on the roster.
Yeah, you never know. The first thing is what Kurt did is legal. If it's legal, I got no problem with it. Don't tell me about it. That wasn't fair. That was not ethical. If it's not against the rules, then you can do it. Because immediately when Kurt resigned, within 5 minutes, his loyalty is to Indiana. And I don't think anyone should have a problem with that. And I'm not taking up for the guy, but it's a fact. It's happening all through college football, and that's what the rules are. Now, we've only played 4 games. There's a lot of good football programs. You look at the scores across the nation, we've got a lot of tough games left. I was one of those guys. I've told all of my friends down here in Myrtle Beach that, we had our 13 best underclassmen were taken to Indiana. And on paper, we should not, have a win more than 6-7 games this year. Now, that being said, everyone on the Sun Belt level, I think I read this where Missouri's best running back transferred from Appalachian. And I'm sure that's where all through the conference, us, Old Dominion, Marshall, I haven't kept up with every team. That's part of what college football is. The one thing that's happened, it doesn't mean we're going to have a great season right now because we won, we're off to a great start. All it means we're off to a great start. and we've got to continue to improve. The guys got to used to playing with each other. They are getting better, but we've got a tough schedule left ahead of us. There's no time, no one's going to Hollywood right now, and I'm sure Bob, once again, I tell the JMU Nation, Bob does a terrific job with the guys, and he's going to tell them that, that we've got a long season left, and we got one game this week. The only game we're worried about is this one this week, and we lost a lot of good players, but we have some kids playing well now. I'm like everyone else. I'm real excited, how things are, but we got a lot of tough football games left. A lot of them.
Well, Coach, and I appreciate you kind of giving this from a coaching perspective.
Yeah,
I'm going to be taking a little bit more from a fandom perspective, and
gotcha.
And curious your thoughts about how, going off of what Jonathan was saying, that actually I'm going to read this quote, and this was a quote that I read in one of our preseason episodes. It's from the Athlon preseason magazine, but it's just it's an anonymous coach. It's an anonymous coach from a Sunbelt staff that just said, expect a pretty significant step back from these guys while they retool under Bob Chesney. And it went on to talk a little bit about that. And I would say from a coaching perspective, that's probably a very reasonable thing to say. The fan in me also kind of wants to point out that, we're in our it's been 21 seasons since we've had a losing record. So there is a culture of winning at JMU, which is why under your leadership, under Withers, under Houston, under Signetti, and now under Coach Chesney, as much as the coach and the players bring to a program, there is something about all the aspects, external aspects around the program that kind of breed that winning culture. And, it is the shock that JMU is continuing the success it's had. Is it as shocking if it was at maybe a school that had one of those one-off seasons and then kind of went back into mediocrity?
Yeah, it can. You look across the nation, it can happen. There's no doubt that you can. My good friend Barry Switzer said at one time when he was at Oklahoma. Oklahoma got beat by Kansas, and Oklahoma was number 1 in the nation, and Kansas was number 130th, and they beat them 3-0. And I'll never forget his comment. They asked him on Monday about the game. He said, "Well, all I know about college football is that humility is a week away." And that's very true. And humility is a week away. Right now, everybody, that's what I'm saying. You've got to get the attention of your players that this is going to be a tough game, and they will do. I have every confidence, that we're going to do that. But it's exactly right. As far as the culture, everyone at James Madison football has a great tradition. That was the biggest thing. When I went there, there was zero tradition. And I mean, there just wasn't. I could tell being around there that, they were proud. I could go on it. I could write a book on it. But I think now we've established that our kids, believe me, the players know they're expected to win. They're expected to play at a high level, and Bob's doing a great job of doing that. His staff is. I can tell. I'm telling you, you don't play the way we played yesterday unless Bob's putting the screws to them every day. And making them understand where they're playing, etc. So I have every confidence we're good.
Coach, quick follow up on that. So you mentioned sort of like the culture. There's a lot of graphics out there with JMU next to Alabama, and then we talked about Ohio State. We sent out a video today of like kids sitting in front of D Hall because they couldn't get into the stands, and all the expand Bridgeforth. Yeah. What goes through your head when you see that, when you see JMU and Alabama in the same sentence and having even comparisons? Like, what do you think?
Pay no attention to it. Pay zero attention to it. That's why I did.
At least as a fan, Coach. As a fan.
One thing about our players, I owned our players in terms of what they thought, and they because I never lied to them. They knew I was always going to tell them the truth, and sometimes that was good, sometimes that was bad, but I always told them the truth. And my message would be, guys, all those people that are comparing us to Alabama and the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Commanders, if Monroe beats us this week, you won't be able to find any of those people. They'll be gone with the wind, and laughing at you. So you better listen to the coaches in this building and not listen to anyone else. Don't because you will be embarrassed and you'll play bad. Get prepared to play. And like I said a while ago, do not worry about Monroe. You can certainly control how we're going to play and how we're going to prepare. And I assure you, I think our coaching staff will prepare these guys to go down there and beat these guys. But that we will play well Saturday. I predict that. And I'm not going to predict winning or losing, but I'm going to predict we're going to play really well down there Saturday night.
Mickey, I wanted to ask you just a broader question outside of just what's
Sure.
happening at JMU, because I know you're still very connected to your friends and in the coaching world. When you're on your text threads or you're on the golf course with coaches who you coached with during your tenure, what are you guys talking about now? Because there's so much obviously that's changed in the game with obviously the NIL and the transfer portal and obviously the conference realignment, which is something I know I'd really like to talk to you about as we move into the future of this program. But what are you guys talking about when you get together about where this game is and where it's headed?
Well, I think we've got to get the NIL thing under control. I don't think there's any doubt that you could agree with a lot. We need to pay the players. No one's arguing that. I've thought that for 20 years, because the college football and college basketball generate so much money for universities that you got to, the kids don't get mad at them if they need some money. So I think we need to do that. But now, are they worth some of the salaries these guys are making? No. So we got to get control of that. Whatever we get involved the federal government and we talk about that. We talk about the transfer portal, which is an interesting thing. I think they're trying to do the best they can to get it under control. It was a great rule that a kid could only transfer once, but I guess I get on my high horse when I was coaching, and all my ex-players will tell you this. Academics was high. I had a unbelievable high graduation rate. I never had a kid, and I could be wrong on this. It could have been once. All the years I coached at JMU, I did not have one kid transfer out of my program. How about that? I don't know if I probably wouldn't tough enough on him, I guess, probably. But the way it is now, if you yell at a kid or get mad at him, he's going to transfer the next day. They've got agents. So I think it's a different world. My hat goes off to the coaches that are doing it right now with the NIL and the transfer portal. It's a different world. And what you're talking about, the conference alignment, I don't even know. I mean, I've been.
Well, because the news this week is Texas State is mulling up offers between the Mountain West and the Pac-12. So we could see potentially some of the rumors are Western Kentucky coming to the Sun Belt. There's some other names being bandied about, but it seems like when you get some stability, you're one day away from it being thrown back into the blender.
Yeah, it's nuts. I don't really know about I thought we should, my opinion, Mickey, but I thought this year's, the biggest thing that ever happened to college athletics that hurt is when the Big East 30, 40 years ago refused to let Penn State in the Big East. All the basketball people. And a year later, they wanted them, but they voted not to extend. And the Big East ceased to exist 5 years later because of that. And that sent Penn State to the Big Ten, and it's never been the same since then. Now, the NFL started, they started having all these, the NFL East Conference and all the South, and, they're pretty regional. They really are, not exactly, but pretty. And I still think we need to use the NFL model and have a commissioner of college football, which we do. The commissioners of the conferences do not want to give up power to the NCAA. That's the problem.
They were talking on College Game Day yesterday about Nick Saban potentially being the commissioner of college football.
Nick would be good.
He did not say no. He did not shy away from it. His interest.
Yeah, we need to have a commit, but the commissioners of the conference. A lot of people don't know that the NCAA doesn't have a lot to do with college football other than the rules. I mean, they control basketball. The only sport they do not control is football. The commissioners of the conferences, the Big Ten commissioner, the SEC commissioner, the Sun Belt commissioner, they control college football. And to tell them that now we're going to have a commissioner over all of y'all, they really bucket that. So that's interesting. But I wish we'd start if I could have my one wish for college football, we would start all over again. Everybody get together and form regional conferences like we used to have. Could have bus conferences. You know, the SEC was a bus conference for me. You know, when I was in Georgia, we hardly ever took a plane. You know, we would.
Well, I mean, look what we're seeing. I mean, to use some examples, I mean, the beauty of the Sun Belt so far, at least in the Eastern
No
Division,
doubt.
is the accessibility of it. I mean, being able to take a quick car ride down to App State or ODU or even if there are two teams that aren't in this conference that I personally would love to see, it's Charlotte and East Carolina. It makes too much sense to have them.
To that point,
No, I
2,000.
And
We have
the kids can all
2,000
go to
travel
school.
miles, and 1,000 is this weekend to Louisiana.
All the kids could go to school. You know, we hardly, in football, we hardly ever missed a day of class. I mean, I one class, we tried to leave on Friday at lunchtime when all the kids went to class Friday morning. I just really, I mean, academics is gone with the wind. I mean, I don't know where, you know, there's no use even trying to keep APR anymore, graduation rate, because you can't keep up because there's too many new kids.
And that's what Saban said in his remarks on game day, that every time a player transfers, they have a 20% less likelihood of graduation.
Sure, they do. They lose hours. They're, you know, it drives me crazy because I was old school. You know, I was totally committed to a kid graduating from school. You know, and getting, you know, I was, you know, we graduated kids, and it was my meetings in my office about school were extremely one-sided. Let's say that.
Well, guys, anything else for Mick? All right. Well, Mickey, how many times are you playing golf this week? I'm going to ask you every week because I'm just curious, because I feel like it should be
at least 3, probably 4.
Any new courses or just your consistent ones?
I just play at the dunes. I play about 3 or 4 different groups out there. We have a good time. It's a great place to play. It's where they play the Myrtle Beach Open. It's a great track. Good guys.
Well, Mickey, you're a hit with this show, and you're being a hit tonight. And just, we're going to tell you every time you come on this is a surreal opportunity for us. And it is absolutely incredible to see you so engaged with this fan base again. It's the way it should be. We want you to have a statue outside of Bridgeport, and we're pushing for it. So just know it's the ultimate honor to have your voice each and every week. And we look forward to next Sunday when we have you on again. So shoot well this week, though.
Go Dukes.
And by next week, you'll have a visor. So just check your packages on the
I got
fort.
Got it. Okay.
Thanks, Mickey. All right, guys. Man, I know that.
It's always fun to actually have a coach on, because then it's like, it's not just us talking, right? It's like, okay.
We need Mickey to know more about basketball, so we can have we just may ask him what happens during basketball season, because he's great.
That's true. He doesn't give a shit about that. I can tell you that right now.
We'll have him we'll find something for him to talk about. First of all, Mickey needs a new agent, because we need Mickey to start putting these quotes together in some sort of book or publication, because it's amazing how smooth they slip off the tongue. So
the Sound Off Mickey Matthews desk calendar.
Yeah, I have a feeling
Taylor just clipping everything.
I have a feeling if this show keeps getting bigger, there's going to be some agent that's associated with ESPN that's like, they may need a new coach on game day or something in the future.
I want to let Davey know, despite all the Botetourt jokes he makes during the show, I was paying attention to his comment, so I was clipping.
Guys, for our final thoughts, I want to try to do something a little different, because yesterday, for whatever reason, I don't know how you all felt about the game, but I have found myself more and more since yesterday just being, it takes a lot to wow me these days. And for some reason, yesterday just felt different in a way that I can't put my finger on it. It was the fact that the Parents Weekend crowd didn't feel like a Parents' Day crowd. You had, obviously, what we talked about with Mickey and we put on our social channels, the people on the field. The tailgate was great. It's 78-degree weather. And in the context of what's happening in the national discussion, it just felt like this program is doing something maybe we shouldn't do in terms of step forward. And I think Mickey's point is, you're 1 week away from being humbled. But in a moment in time as a fan, yesterday just felt special for me. And I want to go around the horn and just get where your head is at mentally, because this has just been special. And like you said, Michael, that graphic with JMU side by side with some of these national brands, it doesn't feel out of place. And I think we all said that last week with the win over UNC. While the score was unique, the victory itself didn't feel that way. And it just, something's happening here. more than just a special time to be a fan. It just seems like this program is it has put some rocket fuel in the engines in a way that I don't know if any of us expected.
Well, it's
Whoever
10
wants to
months.
take that.
Well, it's 10 months of a culmination of what we thought we would see, but we didn't know. And so when Bob started in December, I fully believed he would be able to get his culture in place and be able to flip it. I wasn't sure with 60 some odd guys coming in if all that talk would work.
Yeah.
Then I saw it. Then you started to see it as you started going to practices. You started seeing it as you went to start filming. You started seeing it in the spring. You saw it in the spring game. He said, I want a lot of people. We brought 10 to 12,000 people. You saw that the culture didn't just go away. And I think what yesterday's feeling is it's a validation of what we knew would happen, and it would continue to go. And I think Carolina is one thing. Coming home and doing it at Ball State, which is what we normally would do, and then ratcheting up to 8 more games in the Sun Belt, I think it felt like it was the normal Saturday with a little bit of heat attached to it, which is kind of what our natural life is. And I think that's what the good feeling was for me. And I think it's what the good feeling was for the guys in the locker room.
For me, and I've mentioned this last year a lot, when I was at JMU prior to UTSA, when I was been at JMU after UTSA, it was my time at UTSA and traveling around to a lot of these Big 12 schools, Conference USA, American, Sunbelt, you name it. I had moved to an FBS school, and I'm like, well, I know what I see at JMU, so this is going to be a step above that. And it just wasn't anywhere. And that's including, I'll never forget when UTSA took its first trip to Baylor, and I said, this is Baylor. And from the tailgating well, we all saw it at UNC 2 weeks ago, the student section that didn't fill in. It was an early game. They weren't excited about JMU. This was Ball State on family weekend at 1:30. I mean, there was no reason that we couldn't do it. And our students were there early. The crowd was loud, well into the third. I mean, there was moments where I was looking at the students that were still there, and I was like,
why are they?
Right. I mean, because, there was a time where that game was just put away, and you've created an environment where people really want to be there. And this is going to culminate, decades down the road where, the kids that are there now have had game day, have had top 25, have had a transition to FBS. And, 20 years from now, these folks are going to be, yeah, go ahead.
So I was going to ask, maybe whoever wants to answer, do you think we underappreciated the impact of College game day happening 3 times?
Yes.
Because it's a question that I've been asking myself,
100%.
is that it just happened. And then we all thought that, well, that's the one time we'll see that in our lifetime. That happens again.
It's how we're known nationally.
Yeah.
Everybody knows we had the largest game day. Everybody that I've talked to that you run into an airport and they see my JMU stuff, it's like, you guys had the largest college game day ever. They never talk about the game. It's how we're known. And now they're figuring out that we're actually, because you see us on the crawler every Saturday, and you see yesterday put up another 63 points. That's how we're known. So yeah, we've underestimated it. We've undervalued it because we've treated it as like, well, okay, it's a great event, a good social event, but we've never thought about the brand.
Well, and Taylor, you said it yesterday in the stands with me. It was we were like, man, again, like we're beating this Ball State team 63-7. Like, this is an FBS program that I don't know how long Ball State's been in FBS, but it's 20 years, 30 years,
50 years. They've been around for a while. So
and
I mean,
if you watch
we
the
had people
Ball
come up
State
and say that
coach,
it's another JMU score.
yeah,
Like,
but if
that's
you
what
look at
people
the
are
Ball
saying.
State coach in his post game, he's like, man, I mean, I thought we'd have this, and I mean, the guy looked like he was ready to just,
we were talking
walk
Mickey.
off of here.
You're talking,
I was just gonna say, but it's like they've never had what we've had in
Never.
any sense of the imagination. Right. And if there was any negative to what happened yesterday, you looked at me and you said, I feel like there's a part of our fan base that just say like, well, it's just what we do because we beat, St. Francis this bad. And
well, I remember vividly being in Pilat 2 or 3 years ago, right before that Middle Tennessee State game. And one of the things that I kept walking up to people, I was like, man, you got to pinch me. We're about to have an FBS school on our field. Like, and just how cool that was. And now I think, John, you said you overheard this in the concourse, that you overheard some guy going, yeah, this is my first JMU game. And I just don't come to a lot because I heard they're kind of boring like this. And he meant boring. Listen, he did not mean that to the game day atmosphere. No. He meant the game itself. And I do want to go back to, was it last year that we went to? Yeah, last year we went to Marshall, and our buddies over at the Herd Zone, the podcasters, we had an eerie conversation with them where they said, look, we made this transition to FBS. We dominated. And then all of a sudden our coach left, our athletic director left. They said, just word of caution.
And they were meant it as a nice. They
meant it very nice. Listen, the guys at Marshall, I can't wait till they come to Harrison. We're going to roll out the red carpet for them. But there was part of that did make me so concerned that we were replacing a head coach and an athletic director and a president, and also having to worry about the other program that has all of a sudden started having a lot of success in men's basketball. There was just a lot of turnover. But this is the why. Again, I know it comes off as fandom and all this stuff and homers, but there's an aspect there's a role that the fans play, and there's a role that the fans play in the tailgate atmosphere you create, in the attendance at these games, even sitting in the stadium and continuing to make it a great stadium atmosphere. When you're up by 50 points, you know you're going to win, because when a coach leaves a program and when they're just deciding what programs they're going to go to, there's been a handful. Troy, for example, had been a dominant Sun Belt G5 football program the last couple of years. But we were talking in the text thread last night. We turned on that game against Louisiana Monroe. I think we were also watching the Rice-Charlotte game. And you just see the environment that's there. And so if you do have that up-and-coming young FCS coach or that coordinator from a big program, and he has 10 or 20 schools offering him, he wants to go to some place that has a winning culture. And that winning culture is really driven by, does the administration support the team? Do they give you the resources you need to win? And the administration's only going to do that if there's a demand from the fan base to make that type of investment. So that's why it's so important to continue to come out to these games, even when they don't matter, or why it's important to make your tailgate this big thing. Because yesterday there are recruits there. There's going to be recruits at every home game, and they're walking through those tailgate lots, and their eyes are coming out the same way I did at UTSA when I said, I'm not seeing this at other schools.
Yeah. Well, Michael, I want to bring you into this discussion because you were in front of it. We're in 109, but you were in front of it on the sidelines yesterday, standing in front of a large group of recruits who were on campus, and probably no one sees this more than you do on Twitter, but I probably saw 20 videos today of recruits throwing streamers. They were showcasing the game day atmosphere and the experience they had. This is just what they know now. And recruits from I saw a recruit from Florida. I saw a recruit from New York. I saw a kid from Texas. I mean, there were kids from everywhere in the country in Bridgeforth who saw that crowd, that experience, and that win, and they're now seeing it as commonplace.
Yeah, and I think more importantly, there were a lot of kids from Virginia, which I think is super important there. A couple of follow-ups to that. I think to Taylor's point, you compare us to Troy. It's arguably that we're now a national brand. Let's just call it what it is. 2015, I said everyone was saying College Game Day would never come here. 2017, College Game Day would never come back. 2023, last year, College Game Day would never come if we were an FBS program. And we keep proving doubters wrong. We keep raising expectations. 16 new players, it'll never work. I think from a recruiting standpoint, you see it, right? They see the love, they see the energy, they see the culture. I'll be honest, with the way the transfer portal is, with NIL, with everything, I wouldn't be surprised if, just like men's basketball, we start seeing a even higher echelon of football recruit come in, because of the opportunity, because of the publicity, because of the national brand, like I mentioned here. So curious to see. I mean, we've got 20 recruits already set up. I imagine we're probably trying to see where the dust settles for the offseason. But to go back to the original question, 10 minutes ago, I think we're also we're kind of settling in. Defensively, guys are knowing their role. Can we give a shout out to Chris Sheeran, the safety from UConn? I think he's really solidified himself next to JT in kind of that hybrid.
JMU. That's the safety from JMU. He's not from UConn. We're not mentioning UConn.
Steve, this is why I love you, man. Yeah, the safety from JMU, number 10. Watching him play is fantastic. Jordan Taylor, the other corner from JMU, really stepped up this week with Chauncey out of it. We have guys that are fitting in their spots. Ray Scott, a fantastic linebacker from JMU, has really stepped in in key moments, particularly in third and long. And you could just see his confidence grow in every game. It's really awesome to see. And in terms of the atmosphere, I'm just going to hit on the head. Traditionally JMU, we would go undefeated, or we would lose one game a season, and all people would see is, well, you lost to UNC 56-28. oh, you lost to Duke 31-10. So are you really that good? You can throw all those fans out the window now because all they're going to see is we beat UNC 70-50. We put one more point up on Ball State versus what Miami did earlier in the year. So you throw that out, and now you've got like this contingency of sort of like, what is it called? Fairy weather fans, whatever, like that are just bandwagon fans that, by the way, not allowed anymore. But you have these bandwagon fans. And, for me professionally, I was out in the middle of nowhere, Utah this last week. And I've had people come up to me and go, we saw what JMU did. And we're getting random go Duke. So you're starting to see sort of like the, oh man, are they actually that good? They're doing it again. It's not a fluke. A lot of those guys, and those are our parents too. Those are the parents of the freshmen that come there on Saturday that are like, let me see what this is about. And I think that's a big part of it too. You win big nationally. The brand continues to grow. We all know the social media aspect of it is huge in 2024, not just even sports, just in general. And I think JMU is sort of leading the forefront in that. I don't see many, you don't see the South Alabamas and the Troys and the Lafayette's on there, right? You see James Madison.
Plays into why the Parents' Day crowd was so much better this year.
100%.
Is that now these parents who don't have an affiliation other than in many cases, that their child is a student there, know this football program. They know it. They've seen it. They've seen us beat some of the programs that maybe they support. And I think it adds to the brand recognition again, as you said, but also to the respect factor of, all right, well, I'm going to the family weekend game and they're playing Richmond or they're playing, Northeastern or something like that. It just, you went because it was on the calendar of events but you were like, hey, we're going to leave early because we're going to go to the Pops concert at the Convocation Center. It's just that
exactly.
Literally, I mean, like, I'm not sure that was actually on the schedule.
And even if you look at the Gardner Webb game, like the students stayed. Like they stayed, they supported, and it was 56-7 the fourth quarter. Like, do what you need to do. It's family weekend, go to the restaurant, whatever. But you're seeing like ESPN. We talked about the playoff probability that Khalil's talking about. You're seeing ESPN talk about James Madison. You're seeing all these talking heads talking about James Madison. You're seeing Alonzo Barnett being part of Heisman conversations. We just scored the most points 2 games in a row ever, 133 points in like JMU history. And I always joke around. If you were a fan from 2009 to 2013, you will be a James Madison football fan for life, because everything after that has just been, we've been spoiled, icing on the cake.
I do want to mention, because it's in the comments and it would put on screen, what David said yes, we want to be clear. We're fans. So the players are focused on what happens this Saturday. But as fans and podcast hosts, we can look to what happens next. And we have a massive opportunity here in the next 2 games. First of all, we're going to be on national TV again this weekend, and then an opportunity to showcase to a huge football audience, because you're the ESPN game now on a Thursday night, what Harrisonburg is like. So if you don't have tickets to this game, there are still some available. If you're somebody who has season tickets to this game, but for a very legitimate reason, maybe your kids have a game or there's a school meeting or something that you can't make it, this is the perfect opportunity to give your tickets or sell your tickets or whatever to somebody who hasn't been to a game in a while, and say, hey, go to Harrisonburg on a Thursday night, see it on national TV. This is just a massive opportunity for this program to further solidify the national brand. And especially if we roll into that game at 5-0.
When we do.
Yeah.
And if you got a kid something, that's what grandparents are for. Pawn your kids off on the grandparents for a night and get to the game. It's one game.
Grandparents are coming. I was going to say, I give my people a 2-week window. We have 10 months as a fan base. You have 2 weeks to submit PTO, and you should be kosher with your boss. Do it now. Even if you just do it.
If you're not off the hook at that Coastal game, you're not a JMU fan. Get in the stadium and run those beach chickens' asses right out of there, because that's what I'm going to do. It's going to be constant yelling the entire time. I will leave the other word out of it, but I'm looking past it. I'm going to ULM, but by God, come that Thursday night, we're going to beat the ever living hell out of that team, and awesome. I can't wait.
I do want to talk about ULM for a little bit, though, because I think most Colin fans won't know this.
I would like to know who is their quarterback.
They benched him. He's benched. They benched General Booty.
They benched Booty.
Private Booty got benched.
They benched Booty. But their starting center is former JMU lineman Carter Miller. Just a heads up. He was a good player for us. He was probably one of
Watch Chunky Butt and Manny Bush eat his lunch.
Yeah, he was one of the top rated recruits for us. He was a left guard last year. He played a lot, as a redshirt freshman. Transferred, right? Went to ULM. He's now their starting center. They were bragging a lot in the offseason about how their defensive line, all of them were like JUCO transfers, but I forgot which one. It was 24/7 arrivals. They had them as the number one JUCO recruiting class in the country. And they were big on all these guys. I think Jalen Lane and all these folks coming in and really set the tone. So just as a heads up, they've got good players and we got to take them seriously. Us as podcasters, we got to give them a little bit of love. They're 3-1. I thought there would be 0-4.
Play who you play, and
Zero love.
Use Kurt Signetti. It doesn't matter if you win by 1 or 100. That's for podcasts to talk about. A win's a win.
I'm treating them just like I treat every other team. Humble, hungry, and kick your fucking ass. Sorry about the F word.
It's
we get one. We get at least 1 or 2 of those, right?
It's allowed. It's the internet. We're not on TV yet. Guys, any last thoughts before we send people on with their Sunday night? Taylor, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I have 2.
Sure.
The first one, we got to give a shout out to Jack Mowry.
Best haircut on the team.
Well, I mean, just the best hype man. Again, the best long snappers, the ones who you don't know their name, because when you know their name, it's because while his long snaps have been on point, that man has me so fired up. UNC yesterday at Bridgeforth. If he hears this, I hope he keeps the hype up, because he has a lot of fans, both as a long snapper and just the hype that he brings to the sideline. But the second thing, and this is something we talked about yesterday, I vividly remember this moment. Rod and Todd, we were listening to JMU Sports Blog preseason, the first year in the Sun Belt, and they were talking about, again, a good year would be if we could be 6-6. And we're now 23-5 since that moment. We've yet to hit that 6th loss that would have been a good year in year 1. And this kind of just sums up the conversation we were having earlier, that this is a moment to enjoy, to live in, to embrace. This is a moment that will be, this 3-year stretch, which we hope will be a 4, 5, and 6-year stretch, will be something that people will talk about the way we've talked about the 04 season, we've talked about the 08 season, and something that even in those down years that may come in the future, it's going to be that kindling, that spark that really drives the program forward, knowing, again, I believe this stat is still correct. It's us, Wisconsin, and Boise State are the 3 Division I programs in the country that have not had a losing season in 21 years. So this is a time, going back to that Thursday night game, get out to it, get out and see these guys. This is something special that in the history of college football, very few programs have had the chance to experience what we're doing right now.
Awesome. Michael.
Yeah, I know we've been talking about it a lot, but just tremendous kudos to just the atmosphere and the fan base, right? You think about those 2 new suites that are on the field, those are sold out. I know Mickey sort of dismissed it earlier, but there's that video that we posted with the fans on the hill, right? Just trying to watch the JMU game because they probably couldn't get tickets or couldn't be able to come in. We're seeing the demand grow, right? We're seeing sort of this craziness that is James Madison athletics explode throughout. So, just enjoy it. Like Taylor's mentioning, I remember back in 2022 when Todd Centeo was here and we were we just beat Middle Tennessee State. We never thought this was going to happen. Take advantage of the situation, but here's where we are. So either way, we're a 4-0 James Madison squad. We're going into Monroe, Louisiana, where the population's about 123 people. There's one hotel, I think it's a Motel 6, right over there that the team is probably not going to be staying at. We're taking on a 3-1 ULM that is motivated. Their head coach, Brian Vincent, by the way, was the head coach at UAB when they almost canceled the program, and he calls himself sort of a builder. This is what he loves to do. He loves going to places that have lost historically, bringing his guys, bringing his system. I'm pretty sure, maybe it was last year or before, I think he's also the offensive coordinator. Maybe he calls his own plays too. They're 3-1. Everyone wrote them off all season. So call it what you will. I know we play around with the competition. We're already talking about Coastal on Thursday night, but this is a big Sun Belt game. I think they would essentially be number 1 in the West at this point, right? So it's number 1 in the East, number 1 in the West, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central on ESPNU. This is a huge game, and I think if Coach Chesley will do it right, he's going to have his guys dialed in because it'll be another statement game on national TV.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Steve.
Well, I'm going to be there. So, and I've talked to a lot of people are going to be there. A lot of parents are going. I heard some of the fans are going. There's a bunch coming up from Texas. There's going to be a pretty good group of people in purple there. I did a couple things this week, and I looked at last year's game 4, and this year's game 4, and there's an unbelievable number of similarities. Utah State game, we had 512 of offense, 4 passing touchdowns, and 2 running TDs by the quarterback. So 6 total touchdowns. Yesterday, we had 506 yards, 5 passing touchdowns, and 1 running touchdown by our QB, 2 TDs by our running backs. 73 plays at Utah State, 63 plays yesterday. 7 yards per play at Utah State, 8 yards per play yesterday. 29 minutes was the time of possession at Utah State, 26 minutes yesterday. And yesterday, we had 3 picks. At Utah State, we threw 2 picks and had 3 picks. The change that you've seen between 23 and 24 is, I think, a stronger, upgraded team. This is a really, really good team. Thankful for them. Thankful for the coaching staff. Looking forward to Saturday night. It's going to be tough. As much as we talk about it. The margin is so slim between these teams. But at the end of the day, it's who wants it more, and we want it more. And so we're coming in there on Saturday night. It's a quick charter flight for them, and we're going to charter in and charter out, and we're going to come out with a win.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve.
Just to follow up.
Yeah.
Let me just follow up on that because Taylor brought this up on 3 or 4 episodes ago. We always remember the outcome, but we don't remember the journey, right? Remember last year, everyone remembers Jalen Green's year, our defensive line, but no one remembers our pass defense was one of the worst for the first 4 or 5 games. And then we threw in D'Angelo Pons. Everyone knows his name now. And we're seeing the same thing, I think, with this team. And Taylor, shout out to you, man. That was a very mature analysis there for us impatient JMU fans. But looking at we're leading the country in turnover differentials. We're getting interceptions. We're forcing fumbles. We're probably not sacking the quarterback or getting as many TFLs as last year's team. But there's a million ways to skin a cat. Right. So we're doing things differently. We're growing week over week. So I think it's a phenomenal coaching effort. And I think, that's something we shouldn't be doubting, nor should we continue comparing. I have a lot of people that are saying, oh, I missed last year's defense and last year's defense tackled better. Well, every coach said it best. Good teams grow week over week. And I think we're going to see that come to fruition again on Saturday.
Yeah, it's pretty fun seeing Spence in the end zone and Eric O'Neill sliding. It's a different version, but the outcome's still the same. My final thought for today is a simple thank you. I just want to thank everyone who continues to come to the show. We look at the numbers like everyone who's in this business. We are seeing a lot of new people rallying behind what we're trying to do. Again, we're 4 normal guys who do this on a Sunday night. Probably sometimes their wives or fiancés or girlfriends are looking at us going, doing it again, and we're doing it for one reason, and that's we want to grow this brand. I want to say thank you for also understanding we ask a lot from you, whether it's support of the collective, various raffle things that we have going on, different campaigns, bourbon sales. We're only doing that because there's a need. And we know that if you're watching a program like this on a Sunday, or you're watching or listening to it on your Monday morning commute, that's because you care. So this is a podcast by people who care, for people who care. So just know we're always going to continue to give you updates on how you can invest in this program. But we know there's many different ways you can do that. So just simply amplifying our message, continuing to show support for the student athletes who come on, whether they're football players or women's soccer players or anything in between. You being an active and engaged fan matters, and just know that it's not lost on any of us associated with this program. So guys, on behalf of Mickey Matthews, Carson Long, Frank Payne, everyone who makes this show possible. As always, thank you to our sponsors, Skyline Financial, Where's Woody, Talent Corps, Your Purple Nation, and Shoker Enterprises. It's because of them that this show is possible. And with that, we are looking forward to whoever makes the trip down to Louisiana. Safe travels. One last plug. If you're a fan out there who wants to show your support for the Boone area, App State community, the Asheville, North Carolina community, Southwest Virginia, Bristol area, many parts of the countries impacted by Hurricane Helene. Redcross.org. You can also teamrubicon.org. Many different organizations that you can lend your support. If you can't give a financial donation, please consider volunteering. Many ways you can get involved and help these communities rebuild. And with that, we'll talk to you next Sunday at 8 p.m. for another episode of JMU Sound Off. Go Dukes.